Tales of fame and fate, where all too often one's fame determines one's fate. In this special episode, we're going to bring you our 10 most unbelievable tales of those whose fate is what gave them their fame. Jorgen Brandt, a 43-year-old engineer from Berlin, with perhaps a very warped sense of curiosity, decided to answer an advertisement of someone that was looking for a young, well-built man who wanted to be eaten. On March 9, 2001, Brandt went to the home of Armin Muse, a 42-year-old computer expert who lived in the small town of Rottenburg, Germany. Muse told police that the two men agreed on what was about to transpire, and after Brandt swallowed 20 sleeping pills and half a bottle of schnapps, Muse chopped off Brandt's penis, fried it like a sausage, and fed it to them both. Once the appetizer was finished, Muse finished off Brandt by stabbing him several times, then chopping him into pieces. He then placed the pieces in the freezer next to a takeout pizza to cook up in the days to come. Muse told investigators that he tasted a lot like pork, and with every bite over the next several days, he became more and more fond of the 43-year-old Brandt, of whom he would never forget. Around the hour of 9 a.m. on March 9th, 2010, Jenny Mitchell, a 19-year-old hairdresser, was driving to her home in Shaftesbury, England, after a visit with her fiancé. Unknown to her was that a bottle of hydrogen peroxide was leaking and mixing with other chemicals that she had used as a hairdresser, and she had placed them on the floorboards of her car earlier that day. Mitchell was known to be a heavy smoker, and as she drove along, she decided to light a cigarette. The dangerous gas that she apparently didn't notice ignited a catastrophic explosion that consumed both Mitchell's car and herself. Because of the incident, authorities sent out Mitchell's story, warning all hairdressers to treat chemicals with caution and ensure that they're not allowed to leak. The coroner was asked why Mitchell didn't smell the gas, as he replied that she was probably used to the smell and disregarded it, but only a hairdresser knows for sure. Jennifer Strange, a 28-year-old mom from Sacramento, California, wanted to give her kids a brand new Wii gaming system. Hearing that the local radio station, KDND 107.9, was holding a contest to win one, Strange went to the radio station to participate in the Hold Your Wii for a Wii contest. Contestants were given several 8-ounce bottles of water to drink, and the idea was that the one that drank the most water without having to pee would be named the winner of the Wii. After several contestants could not hold back their bladders from leaking any longer, there only remained a few. They were given even bigger bottles of water to consume. After drinking more than 1.5 gallons of water in a short amount of time, Strange, unfortunately, lost the contest, coming in second. As she traveled home, she called a co-worker about the experience and told her that her head hurt and she was going to go home and rest. That was the last that anyone ever heard from her. Jennifer Strange died approximately 6 hours later from acute water intoxication, according to the coroner. The radio station was sued, and his family was awarded $16.5 million in compensation. By the way, for coming in second, Strange won 2 tickets to a Justin Timberlake concert. 42-year-old Kevin Whitrick, a father of two, logged in one night to an internet chat room in Britain called Pal Talk. He was logged into a special insult room where users would just go at each other back and forth all night long. Whitrick decided, when he first went into the room, that he would tell about 50 other users that he was going to hang himself. Unknown to the other users in the room, Whitrick was in a deep depression, having just split from his wife, and his father had just recently passed away. As the other users were insulting him, they watched Whitrick punch a hole in his ceiling, tie a rope around a beam, and the other end around his neck. Chat room members, thinking that it was a game, were yelling to do it, just effing do it already. They thought it was all a show. Well, Whitrick climbed onto a chair, tightened the rope, and kicked out the chair. After a few minutes, the rest of the chat room was shocked, knowing that this was not a joke, and started to panic, calling the police. The feed to Whitrick's internet camera was cut, and police responded to his home to find him dead of strangulation. 49-year-old Diana Durham of Chambers, Nebraska, along with her husband Mark, drove off to sell a puppy to another couple that learned of a litter that the Durr family dog had just recently given birth to. Durr and Nancy Boston agreed to meet each other halfway by driving to and meeting up at the Taco Bell in North Platte to complete the sale. Durr told Boston that they would be in a Ford F-150 pickup truck at the Conoco Taco Bell Express just south of Interstate 80, and at 1 p.m. parked under the Taco Bell sign. Police said that as they waited, wind gusts of about 40 miles per hour hit the sign. And though that wasn't unusual for the area, the pole had recently been repaired, and the sign snapped at a previously welded joint about 15 feet up from the ground. The sign, an estimated 75 feet tall, fell into the top of the truck, smashing the roof and immediately killing Diana. "25-year-old Ukrainian chemistry student Vladimir Lichinus was busy in his room working on a project for his chemistry class. Like many students, Vladimir would often have snacks around him as he worked away on his homework and studied. One of his favorite treats was any candy that was extremely sour. The ingredient that gives gums and candies that sour flavor is usually powdered citric acid. Well, Lichinus, however, liked the taste so much that he would often have a dish of the powdered substance that he would continuously dip his gum into and begin chewing again until the flavor ran out, where he would dip it in again and again. On one unfortunate evening in December of 2009, Lichinus' family heard a kind of loud pop come from the room that he was studying in. When his brother Rostolov went to check on the sound, he was horrified to see Vladimir sitting in his chair covered with blood. His lower jaw was missing, and what was left of his face was hideously disfigured. On his computer table, investigators found a small plastic bag with white powder, which was identified as a powerful explosive. Right next to it was the saucer with the citric acid that he dipped his gum into. Apparently, the chemist accidentally put his chewing gum into the explosive and put it right into his mouth. The explosion was likely triggered by his saliva setting off the explosion and killing him. 28-year-old Sergei Tuganov and two of his female companions were drinking and having a great time one evening in February of 2009. One of the women, identified only as Alina, decided to bet Sergei approximately $4,000 that he could not continuously have sex with the two women for 12 straight hours. The 28-year-old hormone-filled mechanic was not about to refuse the bet, looking forward to both a sexual conquest that he could brag about to his friends, and of course, the $4,000 which he could certainly use. To ensure a victory, Tugganoff decided to swallow an entire bottle of Viagra just before the clock started and the festivities began. 12 hours later, two exhausted ladies admitted defeat and paid up the money that they had bet him. But in just minutes later, according to one of the women, Tugganoff clutched his chest in agony and died of a massive heart attack. On August 28, 2003, Brian Wells, a pizza delivery man from Mamma Mia Pizza in Erie, Pennsylvania, calmly walked into a bank and handed a teller a note saying that he wanted $250,000. He then pointed to a device that was around his neck and told her that it was a bomb. The teller told Wells that she didn't have that large of an amount and handed him everything that she had, totaling just under $9,000. Wells took the bag of money and left, got into his car and drove off. After driving off from the bank, Wells stopped his car down the road, got out to pick up what appeared to be another note from under a rock on the side of the road. Pennsylvania state troopers passing by saw the car and surrounded Wells. After being handcuffed, Wells, who had no criminal record, told the troopers that he had been forced to commit the robbery by three men that he was delivering a pizza to earlier. He said that if he succeeded, he would live. But if he failed, the bomb would explode after 15 minutes. While being questioned, the device started to emit a loud beeping noise. And as the officers ran to take cover, the bomb exploded, killing Wells. After a long investigation, the FBI revealed that Wells, along with the other three men, were all in on the robbery together. Wells thought that the bomb was fake. It wasn't. In March 1989, in Columbia, South Carolina, 28-year-old convicted killer Michael Anderson Godwin sat in his cell wanting only to enjoy some television. Godwin had been convicted of beating to death a 24-year-old Mary Elizabeth Royam with an electric flat iron. Godwin was sentenced to death in the electric chair. But much to the dismay of many, Godwin escaped execution when his attorney managed to get his sentence reduced to life in prison. Some say it was poetic justice, however, when one evening in 1989, Godwin was in his cell wanting to watch some television. Apparently, his headphones that were hooked up to the television set had stopped working. Godwin sat down on the metal toilet in his cell to work on the problem. He noticed that the wires to the headphones had become broken and needed to be spliced together. Unfortunately, common sense was not something that Godwin had much of. With the television still on, Godwin used his teeth to strip the wires, which allowed the electrical current to travel through his wet mouth into the metal toilet that he was sitting on, frying him on the spot. Later, during a routine check, officers found him dead in his cell, his mouth and teeth severely burned, still sitting on his homemade electric chair. On July 2, 2005, Kenneth Pinion and his associate 54-year-old James Tate were engaging in a movie production of sorts, which featured people that like to have sexual encounters with livestock. On a farm in King County, Washington, Tate began to film Pinion engaging in a sex act with a full-grown 1,000-some-odd-pound stallion. During the act, however, Pinion had suffered a perforated colon. Because of the embarrassment of having to tell doctors how this had happened, Pinion decided to tough it out as long as he could and not go to the emergency room. His companion Tate urged him to seek medical help, but Pinion was worried more about his security clearance and his job as a Boeing aerospace engineer and refused. Later that evening, Pinion was dropped off at the Enumclaw Community Hospital by an anonymous man asking for help for his friend. Pinion was found dead in the emergency room, and the man had disappeared. Pinion had died of acute peritonitis due to perforation of the colon. Because of Pinion and his death, which gained much media attention and even stemmed an award-winning documentary, Washington's first laws criminalizing bestiality were created.